What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome to another edition of the Changeup, our first off-season episode of the Changeup. With me, as always, is my co-host Bryanna Winner. You can find Bryanna at bwinner12. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. I just can't keep up with all of this free agency.
Yeah, it's we picked a good day to record on. We are recording on Monday, the 5th of December, and actually, let's say four in the last 30 hours have come through. Big free agent signings. We weren't quite sure how many we were actually going to talk about. It's been, I think, 3 weeks since we last recorded. Just kind of wanted to let the free agency marinate, and my goodness, has it been doing that. Like I said, the last 30 hours have been crazy. We'll break that all down with the signings and the best ones, the best free agents still available. Also have some team reports to hop back into the winner's circle, and I'll give you some Padre news, along with talking about a little bit Miguel Cabrera, his final year in 2023. But before we get into that, really, I think one of the best, or at least the biggest stories in all of baseball, not just major leagues, obviously, is coming out of Brown University. Olivia Pichardo, and I do apologize if I mispronounced that name, becomes the first woman to make a D1 baseball team. She will be playing this year for the Brown University baseball team. And obviously it's an Ivy League school, so she can ball. She's also very, very smart. From what you can imagine going to Brown. She was a walk-on. If you know anything about college baseball, scholarships are very hard to come by. But impressed the coaches beyond what they expected at the tryout. She is on the team. I think it's absolutely great news. I think we've seen in the last 2 years, pretty much, we've seen the, I guess, explosion of women in baseball. Kim, is it Na or Ning? I apologize. Out in Miami. I know the Marlins also made another move, getting a female president of baseball operations, something like that. And then, of course, we saw a minor league team name a female manager, and now we have Olivia Pichardo, who will be playing for the Brown University in the summer, or at least in the spring, whenever they get rolling. Bryanna, what are your thoughts? We see history as first female to break camp, if you will, with a Division I baseball team.
I mean, honestly, I think it's about time because we've been seeing girls, obviously, in the Little League World Series as well. Honestly, I thought it would have been Monet Davis going first, but she decided to go play softball instead. But obviously, this is a good step in the right direction and can prove that girls can play baseball, just like men can play softball, whether it's slow pitch or fast pitch. So, I mean, good for her.
I agree. And it's a big choice. I mean, obviously, softball and baseball, similar sports, but they are kind of gendered, at least fast pitch and, the amateur levels. For Olivia, I think for her to go 100% baseball, you brought up Monet Davis, and as you said, and I agree with you, of all the female athletes in the Little League World Series, she definitely would have been the first one that I would have picked. But you brought up that she chose softball, and you do kind of have to make a choice at that point. What sport you do want to play. It's unfortunate, if you want to play basketball and you're a female, if you're just good enough, you go play in the men's. Well, it's the same sport, just different opponents, if you will. Softball, obviously, a little different. Let's be honest, it's essentially the same, but I think the biggest thing for me is obviously the release point. Bryanna, you can obviously speak to this. The release point in softball, you're looking down, and obviously in baseball, you're looking up. So I got struck out, couldn't tell you how many times, by numerous female softball pitchers. And now, granted, I wasn't very good at baseball at that level, but still, I would always say, look, it's the eyesight. It's a little different down there. But for Olivia to go all in on baseball and for this to happen, I think it's great. Obviously, best of luck to her going forward. It's a long grind to get to the major leagues. Obviously, first things first, go get have a good collegiate season, get your diploma or get your degree, and then hopefully a team will come calling on draft day and you'll begin that grind and that climb all the way, hopefully, to the major leagues. And when we're doing this in 10 years, we can talk about her making her major league debut. I think that would be really, really cool.
I honestly wish this would have happened, obviously, for a lot of years, because look at A League of Their Own. I mean, that was based on real life. So I don't know why they didn't just let girls play professional baseball like they did back then. Obviously, it was during the war, so it was a little different. But back then it showed that girls can women can play baseball. So why haven't they done this before?
Yeah, I've always kind of been like, I've never seen a female baseball team. Obviously, I know League of Their Own, but that was incredible circumstances, for better or worse. But I've never seen a all female baseball league or baseball team. It's always, oh, if you want to play baseball and you're a female, you're going to go play softball, and if you're a male, you go play baseball. I don't know the thought process behind it. Obviously, money wise for the institutions, that's a part of it too, but I feel like it's something that you give the females the opportunity to play baseball, not softball. No disrespect to softball, and vice versa. Let's be honest. If guys want to go play fast pitch softball, I think that should be an option for them as well. But
I mean, it is, especially look at the Olympics.
Is it?
They had,
okay.
Yeah, they had fast pitch baseball, men's fast pitch too.
Really? Did not know that. Okay. Good to know. I've only seen, the slow pitch, and that's mainly kind of guys who
no, the US still has a men's fast pitch team every year.
Oh, gotcha. Did not know that. All right. Well, so yeah, I mean, obviously, I just wish it would be more, as somebody who's a fan of baseball as long as I have been, not to find that out at 34 years of age, maybe more publicity about it, or easier to get to. But moving on to some free agent talk, free agent movement, I should say. And this list had 2 names on it when I sent the rundown to Bryanna, or actually 3 names on it. But originally when I typed up this rundown, it had 2 names on it. But the big signings are starting to move forward. Some big ones, I'd say Jacob deGrom goes to Texas. Trey Turner heads to Philadelphia. Justin Verlander will head to the New York Mets. Clayton Kershaw never leaving the Dodgers. He returns to the Dodgers.
He's gonna retire there.
Sorry?
He's gonna retire there.
I feel like at this point, like, why are we doing these 1 years every off season? I can't imagine Kershaw's listening to anybody's offer right now. But you also have Anthony Rizzo. At least for me, surprising to see him stay in New York. And Jose Abreu will head to the Astros. Hopefully someone told him they don't cheat anymore. Hopefully that wasn't part of the reason why he decided to go that way. Bryanna, what are your thoughts? Obviously 6 big signings plus others, but the big 6 signings that have gone through so far, a lot of movement into the AL West. But what are your thoughts overall on the early free agent signings?
The deGrom one is interesting, because I don't know why he would go to the Rangers. I guess they might be trying to build around him at this point. But like, when one leaves, one goes. So
yeah,
the moment that deGrom went to the Rangers, we saw like earlier today that Verlander was going to the Mets. So I guess Verlander sees something, even though they just decided to choke. But
he's got manager of the year. Buck Showalter, manager of the year.
I mean, yeah.
Anyways.
I mean, yeah. But the deGrom to Texas is the weird one for me.
It kind of feels like last year with Chris Bryant to the Rockies, if I'm being honest, because it's like, yeah, you got paid, good for you, but really? Like, now Texas, I know, is going for it. They made some moves last year. Marcus Semien, I'm not going to forget his name for half the podcast this time, was brought in, and then obviously Corey Seager. But Jacob deGrom, it's the old, I saw a meme of that Ferrari or that Lambo in the parking spot of the trailer park. It's kind of how Jacob deGrom is in that pitching staff. Not a whole lot of others that are going to help him. Honestly, if I'm being honest, I think it had to come down to the years. He got I believe 6 with an option for 7, or he got 5 with an option for 6, but he got a minimum of 5 years. And I think after what we saw over the last 2 years with deGrom, some injuries, it was pretty much a whole calendar year where he didn't pitch. I really do think the Mets probably didn't want to go higher than 3 or 4 years, because I can't imagine Steve Cohen was getting outbid by the Rangers for deGrom. So I think it really came down to the years that the Rangers offered. I think it could be a bit of it's a gamble for the Rangers in the long run. I think early you feel good, but at the same time, who else is going to be that guy on this team outside of deGrom that can pitch?
Or just in general outside of pitching.
Yeah.
Because
But I mean,
they're struggling.
Sorry.
But you need offense too, and
Yeah.
they're
Well,
struggling.
I think they look at it and they hope that they'll get more out of Simeon this year. And then they hope that Corey Seager didn't have a terrible year last year. Don't get me wrong. But he isn't the number one option. He has been in the past. Last year, he was not that guy that kind of needs to lead an offense. And that's what they expected out of him. Didn't happen. But I will say I've heard a lot of talk that the Rangers are not done. There's a lot of big names still out there, but I really feel like they're going to have to bring in another starter to really be taken seriously in that division. I know they maybe overperformed for what most people expected. I know both of us maybe expected them to, although I think they kind of fell apart towards the end anyway.
Well, to be fair, the A's very much underperformed. So.
That was, yeah. And we didn't expect too much from the A's, and they still underperformed.
We expected them to be 4th.
Yes.
Not dead last pretty much in the entire American League.
Yeah, I think all of baseball too. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting out there in the AL West. Even Jose Abreu going to the Astros, into that ballpark that I think is very good for him. Add 5-10 more home runs into his line, playing at Minute Maid, or is that what it's called? I don't know what it's called these days. Minute Maid used to be Enron, blah, blah, blah. And then Trey Turner to the Philadelphia Phillies, 11 years. Wow, that's a long time. Full no trade. So they're holding on to this contract, 11 years, $300 million. The Phillies, at the very least, this team may be the best offense, at least on paper, in all of baseball. And I also think they have some pitching that can go along with it. Hey, guess what? They are the reigning National League champions. They are improving as well. So keep an eye there. Trey Turner and Bryce Harper reunited and much to the chagrin of the national fan base. I can't imagine how they're feeling right now, knowing they have to deal with Bryce Harper and Trey Turner 20 times a year next year, when they had him winning championships just a few years back. But moving on to Miguel Cabrera, obviously big news out of him earlier this month, or at least earlier last month, I should say, announcing that 2023 will be his final season. I think this is probably fitting. Let's be honest. I mean, Miguel Cabrera has been playing this game for a very long time. His body's starting to fall apart, and he definitely hasn't been on the same level as he used to. Very similar to what we saw out of Albert Pujols. Now, Albert Pujols put together a fantastic year this year. Maybe we see that from Miguel Cabrera next year. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts? Miguel Cabrera, first ballot Hall of Famer, on his way out, final season in 2023.
I mean, he says that, but we're going to remember that there are times where people will say that, and then it actually won't be. Because if I recall, Pujols said it a few years ago too.
Actually, I think that was his wife.
Somebody said it.
And he came out, and I think what she was saying was it was his final year with the Angels, or at least meant to say that. But you're right. There are a lot of times where we do see people, we kind of give them their farewell tour, and 2 years later, you're like, wait, what are you doing here?
Yeah, if that happens, I won't be shocked. But at the same time, at least if he realizes that his body can't do this anymore, then that's a step in a good direction, because a lot of players won't. Yeah. Like Clayton Kershaw probably should.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Miguel Cabrera, I don't expect him to come back. And I could be wrong, but I just think, though, if you look at his trajectory of his career, the last 3 or 4 years, he has not been decent. Let's be honest. He's been below average. And he's still getting paid, which is great. And they love him in Detroit. But I think for him, he wanted one more year. I think he really looks around, and I'll be the first one to admit I completely missed on the Tigers. I expected them to be better than they were this year. They were not even close to that. And I think Miguel Cabrera kind of sees this team the way I do, in that maybe they're just next year is the time. And I think maybe he thought this year wasn't it? And goes, you know what? I don't really want to share the limelight with Pujols and Molina. I want to do this all on my own. And I think it's good for us to kind of know, get the correct, what's the word I'm looking for? Acknowledgement going forward. Yeah. Just give him his little trophies. And, the last time he's at, I don't know, fill in the blank of a city in Boston, they'll give him something, and just something like that. And to be acknowledged, because as tough as the last few years have been for Miguel Cabrera, this is by far, for my money, as guaranteed of a first ballot Hall of Famer as you can get, right there with Pujols. Maybe even higher than Pujols, just because of that Triple Crown. It's the only reason I would put him higher than Pujols, is because he did win the Triple Crown a few years back, broke that long drought from Major League Baseball. But it's going to be unfortunate. It's going to be very odd in 2024 to see a Major League Baseball season without Molina, Pujols, or Miguel Cabrera. We'll see if Kershaw is still kicking by then, but we'll see how that goes. But it is time, after a little bit of a break, to dive back into the winner's circle. And she's still shaking her head. She doesn't really want to, but she's a professional.
Well, at the same time, there's not much to say.
Yeah, well, it's late. It's early in free agency. But Bryanna, what do you got as we step into the winner's circle? The floor is yours.
Well, first, how do you feel about the AL MVP?
I disagree with it, but I'm not shocked.
I mean, you both of us kind of saw it coming that Otani wasn't going to win it over Judge.
I am glad that one of the baseball writers had the cojones to actually give Shohei Otani a first place vote, so Aaron Judge wasn't unanimous. But for me, until Shohei Otani retires or doesn't do both, he's the MVP. And I understand why people don't want that to be the case. They want their guy. That's fine. But the MVP of the American League for the foreseeable future is Shohei Otani. I don't care what anybody else says.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask your thoughts on that, since we were in the winner.
But like you said, I think we kind of had who is going to and who we believe deserves it, and
or who we want.
Yeah.
Otani was the want. Judge was going to be who was actually going to get it. I don't agree with it, but
well, he won DH of the year, which is the most hollow trophy ever. It's like, come on now, just call it the Shohei Otani Award.
Honestly, that's what they should call the MVP award.
Agreed.
So obviously there isn't much going on right now. They signed a reliever, Carlos Estevez. They signed pitcher Tyler Anderson. Look, we need pitching. Yeah. Yet Perry keeps saying that they want outfielders, and that's why they got Renfro, and I don't understand it, because they still got rid of pitchers for him. I just don't understand it. So they traded for the Brewers for Hunter Renfro in exchange for right-handers Jansen Junk, Elvis Peguero, and I'm pretty sure I just said that wrong, and I apologize, and Adam Seminaris, who was from the 2020 draft, where they pretty much drafted all pitchers. And gotcha. I loved it. And they get rid of them.
Well, I think, and I could be wrong, but I don't think these pitchers at the moment are major league ready.
They're not, but at the same time, they still need the pitching prospects. They still need the pitch in general.
Or they get a major league, or they look at it and say, look, we really, they weren't too high on those guys. It is still early in free agents.
But why would you trade 3 pitchers for an outfielder you don't need?
Well, or they obviously, I feel like they've obviously what they look like in 2023. Hunter Renfro was apparently in need, and those 3 pitchers weren't going to make an impact. We're still very early in free agency. Artie Moreno, despite all the talk of him wanting to maybe sell the team, things like that, this is a guy who's going to go out and spend money. Is it the smartest? No. So I would suggest, by the fact that them getting rid of those pitchers makes me believe that they went out and said, look, this is the bat we need. Now we focus fully on the free agent pitching side of things. Because this is, I think Hunter Renfro, he's not going to hit 300. He's not even going to hit 250 for you. But you put him in the middle or behind Shohei Otani, Mike Trout, however you want to get that rolling. He's a very good number 5 hitter. He'll put the fear of you know what in certain pitchers in certain times. So I do think it's a good pickup. You're right. I mean, yeah, they are getting rid of some pitching, but they obviously didn't expect either of those guys to be game changers anytime soon. So we'll see how that goes. So, but I do like the Tyler Anderson pickup. I do.
Yeah, that I agree with. It's that Hunter Renfro trade I don't, just because they don't need more outfielders. But that's pretty much all I've got. So your turn.
Gotcha. So kind of same thing on the Padres side of things. No big signings yet. Bringing the guys back that they needed to. Robert Suarez and Nick Martinez both re-signing up with the Padres. A lot of talk for the Padres going into this free agency or as we go forward has been the first base position. Padres are very high on Anthony Rizzo. Actually was drafted by the Padres, ended up obviously staying in New York. And then a lot of talk about Xander Bogaerts at the moment, a guy we'll talk about here momentarily, and the best free agents available. Shortstop, they want to upgrade that position. Ha-Sung Kim, really great, defender, nice spark plug, but you need a little bit more offensively these days from your shortstop. Xander Bogaerts would fill that need. I think all Padre fans, ideally, even if Xander Bogaerts doesn't get signed, I'm more comfortable with Ha-Sung Kim at short rather than Fernando Tatis. So I think you start this spring in this offseason, you get Fernando Tatis when he's healthy and available. You get him in left field, and he is the left fielder of the future until Grisham moves on, and then you move Tatis into center. But as of right now, I think if we go into next year and Fernando Tatis, when he is available, in left, Grisham in center, and Soto in right, I think the Padres would feel real good about that. With Grisham, the defensive dynamo, in center, and then 2 kind of defensive liabilities in the corner, but can bring the bats to the table. That's the big part of it. And then have Ha-Sung Kim hold down shortstop, fantastic defender. Or if you go out and you splash some cash and you get perennial all-star, always MVP candidate in Xander Bogaerts, that would be a huge upgrade. And Ha-Sung Kim kind of becomes the super utility man, which would be unfortunate for him, but it is what it is. But that would be the ideal situation. But I think for the Padres, maybe 1 or 2 more starters. I'd like another arm in the bullpen, ideally. But I don't expect the Padres to be in on a lot of these big time free agents outside of Xander Bogaerts. Maybe a trade come through. I've heard some rumblings about the Padres trying to get Dustin May from the Dodgers. I don't think the Padres and Dodgers are going to trade anymore after that Matt Kemp fiasco a few years back. But we shall see going forward. I expect somewhat of news in the next 2 weeks, but nothing too crazy from the Padres. Like I said, if they go out and get Xander Bogaerts, fantastic. But other than that, I don't think they're going to be in the market for any big free agents. And I'm okay with that as well, because we have our nucleus already set there. So, and I talked about it earlier. It is time to give the best free agents still available, and winter meetings start tomorrow. And that is the 6th of December. Actually, at some point this week, I shouldn't fully say that, but winter meetings will begin at some point this week. And Aaron Judge is apparently going to be there in person. We've seen a lot of videos. He's been in San Francisco. Apparently, it's between the Giants and the Yankees. The Yankees said they won't be outbid, but Aaron Judge is from the Bay Area. That's where he was born. So we'll see how that goes. You also have Carlos Correa, Xander Bogaerts, and Dansby Swanson. What a great trio of shortstops there. All 3 of them are still on the market. You have Brandon Nimmo, kind of a center fielder, outfielder, and then 3 pitchers. You got Carlos Rodon, lefty, Chris Bassett, righty, Rodon for the Giants last year, Bassett for the Mets last year. And then an interesting one, Kudai Senga, and I probably absolutely butchered that name, and I do
Can we
apologize.
have him?
Huh?
Can we have him with Otani?
Hey, I mean, that works. I feel like that works. He is from Japan. I have to imagine Otani and Senga at some point have matched up against each other. Don't quote me. I know Senga has been in Japan for quite a while, longer than the average Japanese baseball player that comes to the States. I think he's around 30 years old. It's going to be an interesting one because he wants 6 to 8 years. That's a big commitment to make for someone who technically hasn't played in the major leagues already, on 30-year-old side of things. But Bryanna, we know obviously who you want, but what's some of the others where you think Judge is going to go? And out of those 3 pitchers, which one would you like the most?
I think Judge is going to go where the money is, honestly, because that's probably why he stayed with the Yankees for so long. In regards to the shortstops, they could pretty much go anywhere, and I'm okay with you taking one. Although I wouldn't mind taking one either. Just because shortstop has been an area where we are lacking, especially because Rendon keeps getting injured at third base.
Yeah.
Get rid of Rendon, please. Because then you at least can rely on somebody who's not going to constantly get injured. I wouldn't mind Bassett. Honestly, I wouldn't, but I would love to have Senga in there with Otani.
That would be really cool to see that. And that would be a good little trio there for Otani, Senga, and Anderson. Really, Otani, Anderson, and any of those 3, because let's be honest, if you don't end up with Senga or Bassett, I don't think you'd lose any sleep getting Rodon. I think for you and all Angel fans, ideally one of those 3 comes to Anaheim. Hopefully they're in on those, but I think that's a great point you brought up. The Angels have to have an inside track on Senga if they want it, because of Otani. And obviously there are other teams that have Japanese players, but I don't think anybody is on the same level, both sides of the world, that Otani is. So, I didn't mispronounce Shohei's name before he came to the States. No disrespect to Mr. Senga, but I probably mispronounced his name. And that just kind of shows you the star power that Otani was, and still is. But I've made my thoughts known. I would love to get Xander Bogaerts. I think that would be a massive upgrade, offensively. And when you have a foursome of Soto, Tatis, Machado, and Bogaerts, that's hard to compete with. And I also understand that,
scary.
Sorry?
Scary.
Yeah, exactly. It is a very, and I think it takes the pressure off of the first base position as well, because that's probably our biggest need if we're being honest. But Anthony Rizzo was that guy, didn't happen. Then what, so what's next? And for me, I think Bogaerts is that guy. And then first base position, we'll be honest, find a tall guy who can catch. That's your first baseman. No disrespect to the first baseman out there, but let's just be honest. It's a lot easier to make a first baseman than a shortstop in the major leagues. That'll be an interesting one. I would not hate one of those 3 pitchers coming here. Obviously, I have heard some rumors about Senga, but that's just because a lot of people always bring up West Coast teams with Japanese players, because I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but they are closer to home, and a little bit closer to the culture, things like that. I think for the Padres, their biggest thing has to be either Xander Bogaerts or getting Soto extended. Everything else we can just kind of leave. I think our pitching staff's okay. We can get by. Clevenger obviously went to the White Sox. We didn't talk about him, but I liked Sunshine. I was a fan of him, but I'm not losing any sleep with him gone. Best of luck to him. I hope he gets things back under control, but he was never anybody you could actually rely on, unfortunately, when he in his time with the Padres. But I think the Padres definitely another pitcher. I don't know if those 3 are going to be on the Padres radar, because those 3 guys are going to cost a lot of money. And I don't know if Preller is ready to make the investment that is needed. But I think Xander Bogaerts, he is worth not only the money, but the years, because that's the big thing for me. Even when you look at Aaron Judge, we talk about it, every time we talk about the Yankees, what do we say? As long as they stay healthy. Well, Aaron
Yeah.
Judge is at the top of that list. So if you want to sign Aaron Judge to a 10-year contract, that's all guaranteed. You better hope that he sticks around and he stays healthy. The Orioles signing Chris Davis to that monster deal. It's kind of what I always look at to say, yeah, that guy's great, but for 10 years, that's a bit much. But
Trey Turner's deal, for example.
11. See, that's just, now at least, I mean, yeah, I don't know about that one. He's a very, very good baseball player, and he's worth every dollar.
But 11 years seems to be
Yeah.
too much.
That's too much. And he's not like 22, to where, I mean, this is, I think for the Phillies, they took a big gamble, but at the same time, that's probably why he signed there. Nobody else was going double digits in years. I can almost guarantee it that on that side of it. But that is all we have for you today, Bryanna. Final thoughts for more than likely one of very few, if probably maybe our only December podcast, but final thoughts for this episode.
Well, I was going to go back to you saying you can turn anybody into a first baseman. Look at Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, exactly.
He was he was a middle infielder and got transitioned to a first baseman. And look at what he's done.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you also, I think, I look at Joe Mauer. I look at guys like that were catchers for the first part of their years. Their knees start to go. What happens? We'll put them at first. That's kind of the natural thing. I feel like a lot of times if you have a bat and he's struggling in the corner outfield, well, let's give him a try at first. Like you said, you turn Jackie Robinson into a first baseman. You turn Will Myers into a first baseman.
As long as they're not afraid to pick the ball, then they're fine.
Exactly. Well, that's the main thing. Yeah, get down there, pick that ball up, and help your infielders out.
Possibly hitting your face, you're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. But with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Changeup presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all soon. But once again, we're not doing the weekly podcast, maybe every other week. More than likely every 3 weeks, which would put us around Hanukkah and Christmas time. So we may see you in the first of the year, but we will be back with you to break down more of these free agent signings when they come our way. And I can guarantee you the minute I hit stop, all the news on Aaron Judge will come out, because that's how this podcast goes. The minute we stop recording, that's when the big news
or tomorrow
hits. Yeah, or the Rookie of the Year. Finally, the Rookie of the Year came out. We waited pretty much all podcast for it. But anyways.
It took him an extra hour and a half to get it up?
Yeah. Oh, boy. But thank you all so much for listening to this edition of The Changeup. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you all very soon.